Hey guys, happy Thursday. It is January 16th, 2020, and you're watching the Daily Mix TV. Hi, my name is Sean Patrick Hillman. Well, you know the old adage goes, if you can't beat them, join them. At least that's how the taxi drivers in Los Angeles are approaching their problem. The legacy service has been losing out to ride-hail companies over the last decade to the tune of 75%. Yet it remains important for people in cities like New York and LA who only pay in cash or who have disabilities to use those kinds of transportation services. In New York, it's the yellow cabs and medallions. In LA, same thing. The problem is that government can't require Uber and Lyft to make vehicles accessible due to regulatory issues. These companies are not licensed that way in those markets. So there's only a certain amount of pull that the local municipality has with respect to how they can regulate what vehicles are accessible and what aren't in terms of these ride-hail companies. Now, in London, as an example, Uber's license was revoked. It wasn't renewed, excuse me. They're now in an appeal to get that license renewed, and they're allowed to operate during the appeal process. Some insiders have said that Uber will, in fact, not get its license back in London. Here's what's going on in ride-hail overall. The tide has started to turn. And remember, I said this about a week ago, that frankly, ride-hail as a trend is over. It's already reached its crest and it's on its way down. So the cities that have their own sort of apps, in New York City as an example, we have something called Curb. Curb is the combination of a few apps that folded into themselves to create Curb. There were a few apps, and different cabs had different app access. Now it's one app for all of the New York City cabs. Los Angeles is following suit. They have their own app with fares available up front in an order to try and nail the ride-hail business. So the New York City cab drivers did the same thing a bunch of years ago. Now LA is following suit. And I'm hearing word on the street that there are some other consortia of drivers of yellow cabs in other markets that are about to do the same thing. So look for things to change in ride-hail this year. I have a feeling we're going to start to see a serious decline in use for Uber and Lyft, but only time will tell. And we will keep covering this. So, check back regularly to learn more. Oh, guys, I'm sorry, I got to bring this up. It's quarterly reporting time for holiday, last quarter of last year. What does that look like in the stock market? Those kinds of things. So I promised you I wouldn't talk about sales again until the quarterlies. Well, that time is here. And it looks like Target, unfortunately, missed its holiday sales goals. And a lot of that is thanks, in part, to a sales drop in toys and electronics. Now remember, this big box retailer, Target, when Toys R Us folded when they filed for bankruptcy and closed, Target's toy sales went through the stratosphere. Because people from a physical perspective, not virtual, because virtual was more Amazon than anything else in terms of sales for toys. For retail, Target was the destination. So in this last year, in 2019, when we started to see Toys R Us rebuild and come back, they opened a few stores during the holiday season. They did a partnership with Target for e-commerce fulfillment, those kinds of things. Everything was powered by Target with respect to ToysRUs.com. So knowing that, the appetite for toys this holiday and electronics was not as high as it normally is. So the big box retailer did report that comparable sales rose 1.4% in November and December, and that's compared to a 5.7% increase during the same period last year. That is a big drop. And from what I've seen in their reporting in toys, it pretty much remained flat. I mean, when you look at the issue in toy manufacturing and selling, Target's holiday sales really did highlight a sluggish performance in the business. The retailer did take a bigger share of the market, as I talked about, following the closing of Toys R Us. And its toy sales, unfortunately, this year, despite everything that had happened with ToysRUs.com and the fulfillment that we just talked about, their toy sales were flat over the holiday compared with 2018. Now, some industry insiders are citing that there are streamlined offerings from manufacturers like Hasbro and Mattel that are creating the problem. Others are talking about Amazon's dominance as a destination for online shoppers. Now that they've opened their own brick and mortar stores like Amazon Go and so on, that's created an even bigger vacuum with respect to retailers who fell asleep at the wheel during Amazon's meteoric rise. So when we look at the toy business overall, it's scary what's going on. And in a year where, because remember, with toys, a lot of big toy releases and a lot of revenue is generated out of entertainment. So in the 80s, you had Transformers, you had He-Man, Masters of the Universe, you had G.I. Joe. Those were all designed to sell toys. Same with Thundercats. Now, today, we don't have those kinds of shows, that kind of content to drive those sales. And even if we did, there isn't a real destination to go to. The only exception to that is Baby Yoda, because everybody wants Baby Yoda. Very cute. So when you look at Target and what's going on, I'm sure this is just a bump in the road. I mean, look, their sales still rose 1.4%. It's better than losing money at this point. When you're basically flat, because that's what that number amounts to, investors get a little skittish. They get a little worried. Don't. Target over its history has never disappointed. They've had some bumps in the road. They've had some issues, such as, data breach and those kinds of things. But at this point, what retailer hasn't? So don't lose confidence in Target just yet. Specialty retailer Express just laid off 10% of its corporate workforce. It's part of a slew of cost-cutting measures from their CEO, Tim Baxter, who was named to that position last year. Express has struggled to grow sales and most recently reported comparable sales decreased by 5% during its third quarter earnings in December. Look, Express has had a lot of issues over the years, and I have been a fan of this company. My wife is a fan of this company. One of Rock and Rawhide's former board members was a creative director at Express, so I know enough about the company to be dangerous. At the end of the day, when you walk into their stores, it's the same experience you had a decade ago. They have not evolved their approach to the consumer, and that's an issue for almost every brick and mortar retailer. Express also has not had the same kind of organic marketing or influencer marketing they once did. They were a hot brand. Today, not as much. So hopefully they've got a plan to battle back. I mean, if it were me in my case, I would suggest to them, look, you need to get out of your four walls and do something different and fun. Why not host a fashion show for teenagers instead of doing the same stereotypical crap that, most retailers always do? Focus on a younger audience, which is your future generation consumer anyway, and you already have styles and designs specific to that audience, so it makes sense, and you can partner with a bunch of other brands that are like-minded with you in order to get the word out. So, again, nickel's worth of free advice. Hope you guys take it. We'll keep an eye on it and see what happens next. Grocery chains Albertson is preparing for another IPO. This is the third time they've had to bite at the apple in terms of trying to go public, and it's reportedly being driven by one of its own private equity investors, Cerberus Capital. Now, Cerberus is looking for an exit. It's that simple. It's the only reason why you drive an IPO this hard. And over the last, I'd say, 15 years, Cerberus has had its challenges for sure. I'm a little surprised that they're pushing this angle, especially given Albertson's most recent movements in the meal kit business, which can get a little dicey. It can get a little risky when you push out an IPO and certain segments of your business are not solidified, because meal kit and meal kit delivery definitely is not a solid foundation to go IPO on. And then also when you think about in grocery store dining, when you think about the fluctuation in pricing in the market, what's going on from a consumer packaged goods perspective and development, there are a lot of challenges. So going IPO now, I don't know that that's going to reap the benefit they're actually looking for, but we'll keep an eye on it. Procter & Gamble for, January, 16th of 2020, they've already had a handful of really good announcements this year, and there's another one that just happened. They're kicking off 2020 by expanding their portfolio. They announced plans to acquire Billy, which is a subscription-based direct-to-consumer brand focused on better serving women's beauty and grooming needs. Now, Those kinds of subscription boxes are a dime a dozen. They're all over the place. But from what I've heard about Billy, it's a very different approach and it's very cool. So they've got a portfolio that contains shaving supplies, body wash, and lotion as Procter & Gamble. They're going to actually use Billy to complement the company's current female grooming portfolio, which includes Venus, Braun, and Joy brands. Billy's going to continue to be led by their founders, Georgina Gooley and fellow co-founder Jason Bravman. To keep continuity and keep your leadership on in an acquisition is for a bridge period is normal. For a long-term strategy is very unusual. So according to everything I've heard about this acquisition, that's what they're looking to do. And I think it's very smart of Procter & Gamble to do it that way. There's a reason why they're acquiring Billy, and it isn't just their data. It's a good subscription-based brand, and I think that what they've got here is definitely a winner. Following months of tension, the U.S. and China have signed their initial trade deal at the White House, and that includes a promise from Beijing to buy an additional $200 billion worth of American goods over the next 2 years. In exchange, the U.S. will cancel the new tariffs of roughly $156 billion on Chinese imports, and from what I've heard, they're going to have the existing 15% tariff on roughly $120 billion in goods set in September. But they are leaving that 25% tariff on a $250 billion array of industrial products. So it's a win-win for both sides in this context. Excuse me, I'm sorry. I just hope that we haven't cut our nose off to spite our face for a political gain or even just a momentary trade gain. Because remember, we got this far about a year ago, or not even a year ago, I think it was about 6 months ago, where the Chinese had come back to the table and they were doing the back and forth. The fact that they signed phase 1 of the trade deal is great. I'm hoping phase 2 actually happens. We'll keep an eye on it. Audio equipment giant Bose, I still can't believe this. They are closing all of their stores in North America, Europe, Japan, and Australia over the next coming months. And the reason why? Online shopping. You know, I'm so tired of hearing that rhetoric and that excuse. Because at the end of the day, Amazon is a business. Period. End of story. Just like Bose's stores, it is a business. Where it's located is very different. On the internet. Bose has their own internet store, their own e-commerce site. So for them to close their doors is a very, very, very bad move. As a matter of fact, I am completely stunned that they've done this because it's going to result in hundreds of job cuts across 119 stores. Although the Massachusetts company is going to keep 130 stores in place in countries like China and South Korea. Again, doesn't make any sense. Now, Bose is saying it's now going to focus on online sales of products that people buy without hearing first, like their noise-canceling headphones. Why is that important? Bose as a brand has always been about the experience. Experiencing the quality, the performance, and the expertise of their sound equipment. So when you talk about, I have several of their equipment sets. I've got 3 or 4 of their speaker packages in different places, and the sound is absolutely incredible. So now you're going to take away that opportunity for a consumer to go into your store to experience that expertise. That is a big mistake. You're focusing on noise-canceling headphones and things like that. When Apple has stores, their products are sold through Best Buy, just like yours are, as well as a myriad of other competitors. For you to close the one physical outlet that you had in this country is a very dangerous proposition, and you're playing Russian roulette with your investors' money, or your shareholders' money. So in this case, I'm sorry, I think Bose is going to lose on this, and I think it's going to be a really big problem. For this week's Throwback Thursday, on this day in 1963, world-renowned LA venue Whiskey A Go-Go opened its doors as the first real American discotheque. At least, that's how it's often referred to. Bands like the Byrds, acts like Buffalo Springfield, Smokestack Lightning, The Doors, Alice Cooper, No Doubt, Van Halen, Kiss, Guns N' Roses, Motley Crue, Soundgarden, Oasis, System of a Down, and many, many, many more have all played at this legendary venue. And yours truly has certainly spent his fair amount of time at the Whiskey. Now, more recently in 2006, the Whiskey was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, while it is also said that this venue served as an inspiration for the Bourbon Room, which was the epicenter of the runaway Broadway 80s revival hit, Rock of Ages. Now, here's a little clip from the movie version starring Tom Cruise and Alec Baldwin, amongst many more.
This place is about to become a sea of sweat, ear-shattering music, and puke. Jimmy, I've told you 10,000 times, girls drink free, dudes pay full freight.
They are dudes.
That stage is a pedestal, and when you're up there, you're untouchable.
I can guarantee you something a lot more cool. Fame.
This man spews out three things: sex,
I saw Stacey Jacks.
hateful music, and sex. This club is totally out of control. We're gonna shut them down.
Our whole existence is riding on Stacey Jacks.
Rock and roll!
We're not gonna take this city. No, we ain't gonna take this city. We're not gonna take it. And we'll build this city on rock. And we'll build this city on rock.
This is the greatest night of my life!
Ladies and gentlemen, the icon of rock, the legendary Stacey Jacks.
Oh my God, I love you, Stacey Jacks. I love you.
I love rock and roll, so come and take your time and dance with me.
All right. You know, it's a fantastic show. My friend Konstantin Maroulis was in it. My friend Mig Ayesa was in it. Everything about Rock of Ages is just so much fun. But the fact that I have spent as much time at the Whiskey as I have, I got to tell you, seeing the Bourbon Room, I'm like, oh my God, it kills me. Anyway, a couple more things. Offensive crayons. So this woman is somebody I met recently who invented this. I'm going to talk more about this next week because I've got a couple of surprises for you and for her. But you should check it out. Look, if you're politically correct, then don't do it. If you are like me and you don't believe in political correctness, absolutely check out Offensive Crayons. You will smile, you will laugh. It's an adult version of crayons. It's hilarious. By all means, brilliant product. Love you, Alice. Thank you so much. Guys, I will see you tomorrow on Friday. Thanks for watching. If you guys have questions, comments, or story ideas, remember, please email thedailymixtv@gmail.com. See you on Friday.